Chapter 4. Part 3. Arian didn't seem too happy with these last words from Gosburg. They entered a large room, which did not exist in the old barracks. Inside there was a huge table where all the captains were seated with Gosburg, Mulak, and some other members of the company. Gosburg, Aris rose to greet them. They greeted Agnorak and Kush warmly. Aris kissed Arian as Gosburg stood at the back of the table, took a seat and put his boots on the table and lit another cigarette. "Make yourself comfortable, Gosburg, please." "Thank you," from Boke. Everyone shook their heads, but they were used to it. "Welcome, Agnorak, please take a seat." The mercenary pointed to some chairs that were free in front of them. Arian sat next to Aris, Kush in the middle, and Agnorak in the chair closest to Gosburg. "Well, normally I would deal with this matter as you all know in person with Agnorak, but time is of the essence. In 2 weeks we should have all the preparations ready and the troops embarked towards the Dragon Ridge." Gosburg paused, Gosburg scratching his ear as he interrupted the veteran warrior. "So as you have surely been informed by Agnorak, we need all the mercenaries available. The truth is that it was so long since you left that Gosburg had forgotten your name. But thanks to my suggestion he remembered it again. We couldn't waste one of Shannari's greatest warriors." Agnorak looked at Gosburg with some anger, the Denka as always messing things up. "Don't be sulphurous, the truth is that we need you, Agnorak. Plus, you have a contract to keep, and you don't like to go back on your word." With that last sentence Gosburg allowed Gosburg to continue with his speech. He was a little annoyed by the interruption, but he managed to focus again on what he had to say. First of all, the presentations. You already know Loranthas, Aris, Kush, Arian, and Mulak. You don't need to introduce them to you. We have another Captain Silkari, a former captain of the Royal Guard of Thame. You should also remember Banterium, head of the company's quartermaster. Silkari was a petite woman, but with a strong build, short wavy hair, small eyes, and a scar under her left eye. The warrior smiled slightly when she saw the half-orc. Banterium, a man who comfortably passed middle age, sported a well-bushed blonde mustache that compensated for the absence of hair on his head. Tall and robustly built, was a member of the company for more than 3 decades and was completely trusted by Gosburg and Gosburg. Banterium was unfazed by Agnorak's presence. "I'll be blunt, we have 3,000 mercenaries and right now there are 4 captains, Loranthas, Kush, Aris and Silkari. Each one with command over 500 mercenaries. I will take command of another 500, but there were another 500 without a captain. As soon as Agnorak signs his return I will make him captain." Arian smiled satisfied, Kush's gesture was one of approval, Aris nodded. They waited for the news, not so much Loranthas, Silkari and Banterium who did not hide their amazement. Since a captain had never been appointed as soon as she arrived, for example, in the case of Silkari, the warrior had to wait more than a year to be promoted despite being highly qualified. Although the most surprised was the half-orc himself, he expected the usual, to be one more, to fight on the front line and that's it. This was a much greater responsibility. "Don't worry, I'll be in his company. There is nothing to fear." Gosburg spoke calmly, while making it clear that the decision had his full approval. Anyone who had been with the company for a long time knew that if Gosburg authorized it, there was nothing to discuss. "Well, once this has been notified, I would like to meet alone with the half-orc to sign the relevant contracts. Tomorrow at dawn we will meet here again to discuss the progressives." But Gosburg could not continue, huge screams interrupted him, something was happening outside. An attack? That was impossible. In Almera fights between mercenaries with weapons were forbidden under penalty of death. Except in the case that the duel was approved by the council. They all ran out to the parade ground. Upon arrival, they encountered 12 members of the Fire Sword Company who were exchanging pushes with some of their mercenaries, while a middle-aged woman screamed, "Where's that damn Denka? Where's that old sack of fleas and the mummy that protects it, Gosburg?" The veteran mercenary left at a brisk pace accompanied by Kush and Arian. They all knew Arisa. She must have been a little younger than Debok. She was one of the best mercenaries in Almera. He was captain in the company of the Blue Phoenix, but when Debok's father handed over the position of general to his son, Arisa did not take it very well. She considered herself much more capable and left the company to go to the fiercest rival, the company of the Flaming Sword, where thanks to her good work she ended up rising to the rank of general. From then on, the tensions and competition of Debok and Arisa were known to all. "What bellows, Arisa? You got me here." The woman turned and walked steadily toward Debok, escorted by her men. "Tell that sack of fleas to stop fleecing my men and beating them. I have 20 of my best mercenaries in the infirmary." Debok scratched his head. Kush looked for Gosburg, but as was usual when he was sought, the Denka was never usually there. "What kind of people do you hire, Arisa? One night in Almera is enough to know that you should never play with the sack of fleas at cards." Then a mountain jumped from behind Arisa to face Debok and push him. He was a huge being, captain of the Burning Sword. They called him Almazed, the Neckbreaker. He had only been in the company for a short time, but he was cruel enough to rise quickly, until he became Arisa's right-hand man. "Old man, I want to see that Denka. He broke both of my brother's legs." Hitting a general was the greatest insult that could be done in Almera. All the mercenaries went on the defensive. In Almera, although fights were forbidden, there was a certain tolerance in the taverns, as long as it was not a very scandalous thing, fights without weapons and with few participants. "If you have any problems, report the case to the Board of Companies." Arisa smiled contemptuously. "Always shielding yourself in legality. You're a worm. Get out of here. You know, Albiona has paid us double our fee." Arisa spoke proudly. "Then we'll see you on the battlefield." Debok replied ironically. Almazed turned and with his elbow hit Debok's face, who fell to the ground. Smiling, Almazed snapped at him without looking at him. "You're too old for that." It was the straw that broke the camel's back. Aris was about to jump, but Arian managed to grab it, Silkery and Loranthas too, although they were stopped by Kush. Meanwhile, Vanus and Anthra helped Debok to get up, who was shaking the dirt off his uniform. "Oh, sorry. It was a clumsiness of mine, I'm very big. None of us here have the balls to do anything. It's a company of shitty larvae." Almazed strutted at the smile of Arisa and the rest of his companions. They had a good excuse. If someone attacked him, the complaint would cause a serious sanction to the company of the Blue Phoenix. Then it came out of nowhere. Arian and Kush had already seen it in action in Snowy Valley, but it surprised them again. The rest they saw now. The punch went straight to the chin of Almazed, who was thrown 5 meters. Everyone paid attention to Agnorok, who showed a sarcastic half-smile. "This is a provocation. It was an accident. It's going to cost you a fortune." Arisa exclaimed indignantly. As Almazed rose quickly to head for the half-orc, Agnorok ran toward his rival with determination. When the fight seemed inevitable, a rain of daggers that landed in the middle of the two and a huge grey arm pushed Almazed, who ended up landing with his comrades, who all fell like simple bowling alleys. "Well, enough is enough. You're..." Arisa exclaimed. There was Gosburg as always, lighting a cigarette, while his son stood next to him, threatening Arisa's mercenaries who were heavily incorporating Almazed. "Stupid Denka. I'm glad to see you too, Arisa. I'm going to denounce you for the attack on my captain." "You are not going to report anything." "What do you mean?" "Agnorok has not signed anything. He is not a member of the company, so he is not under the rules of the mercenaries." Agnorok approached the Denka. "If you want, I'll go get a sword and we'll fix it now. For me there is no problem." Arisa turned red with rage, something that Debok remembered with some sympathy. Gosburg had always liked to provoke her. "Gosburg will pay me altogether someday." But Arisa was not stupid. She had tried to provoke them and almost succeeded. Now he could only lose more than gain, so he started walking towards the exit. "We're leaving," he ordered Almazid, but the latter wanted more than to break Agnorek's head right now. Arisa tapped him on the shoulder to make him obey his order immediately. "Yes," accepted the huge mercenary resignedly. The mercenaries of the Flaming Sword began to retreat following their general. Outside the barracks many more comrades in arms were crowded waiting for events. Gosburg threw the cigar at the back of Almazid's neck. "Don't worry, Almazid, in Anim you will be able to achieve a fate far more disastrous than that of your crippled brother." Arian put his hands to his head, as Almazid turned around in a rage, as the mercenaries outside entered the barracks. And in the parade ground the Rosary of Dawn was assembled.